8-year-old Tom Walker stared at the night sky through his new telescope, a birthday gift from his parents. Living in the rural outskirts of New Hope Colony, he had access to some of the clearest views of space on humanity's newest exoplanet, Settlement. The colony was only 15 years old, one of humanity's first successful ventures beyond the solar system, made possible by the revolutionary fold drive technology. "Dad! Dad!" Tom called out excitedly. "There's something weird with the stars!" Jack Walker stepped out onto the porch of their modest prefab home, datapad in hand. As the colony's chief astronomer, he was used to his son's enthusiastic discoveries, most often Jupiter-like gas giants or binary star systems that appeared as oddly colored dots through the small telescope. "What is it this time, champ?" Jack asked, ruffling his son's hair. "The stars are moving funny over there." Tom pointed toward a specific region of space. "They're blinking in a pattern, like they're talking." Jack's smile faltered. Colony children were taught basic astronomy early, and Tom had always shown exceptional observational skills. Whatever he was seeing wasn't normal stellar behavior. "Let me take a look," Jack said, bending down to peer through the telescope. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then he noticed it, subtle variations in luminosity from a cluster of stars approximately 12 light-years distant. The pattern was too regular to be natural stellar pulsation. "Tom, I need to call the observatory," Jack said, trying to keep his voice casual despite the chill running down his spine. This was no natural phenomenon. Within hours, the colony's main observatory had confirmed Tom's discovery. The star cluster was exhibiting coordinated luminosity variations that defied natural explanation. Jack presented his findings to Governor Martinez the next morning. "You're telling me a child discovered potential evidence of intelligent life?" the governor asked, skeptical but intrigued. "My son noticed it first, yes," Jack replied. "But our instruments confirm it. These aren't random fluctuations, they're deliberate signals." Dr. Emily Rhodes, the colony's xenolinguistics expert, examined the data. "The patterns repeat precisely every 82.6 minutes. That's intentionality. Someone is sending a message. Can you decode it?" Martinez asked. "Not yet," Emily admitted. "But the fact that it's detectable by simple visual observation suggests it's meant to be noticed by less advanced civilizations. It could be a greeting, or a warning." The discovery was transmitted back to Earth via quantum relay. For decades, humanity had searched for signs of alien intelligence. Now, unexpectedly, on a frontier colony, a child with a birthday telescope had made first contact. Within days, New Hope Colony became the center of humanity's greatest scientific endeavor. Ships carrying the best xenolinguists, astronomers, and first contact specialists in human space were dispatched from Earth. Tom became an unlikely celebrity, the boy who spotted aliens. As Jack tucked his son into bed a week after the discovery, Tom looked troubled. "What's wrong?" Jack asked. "The stars stopped talking," Tom whispered. "They've gone quiet since all the big telescopes started looking." Jack checked his datapad, confirming what his son had already noticed. The signals had indeed ceased abruptly 24 hours after the colony's powerful instruments had begun monitoring them. "Maybe they're shy," Jack suggested, trying to hide his concern. "Or maybe," Tom said with the simple clarity of childhood, "they don't like being watched without permission." As Jack left his son's room, a priority message flashed on his pad from Emily Rhodes. "Urgent. Signal decryption preliminary results." First message component translated. It reads, "Beware. They are coming." The observatory hummed with activity as the brightest minds from Earth and the colonies worked tirelessly to understand the alien message. Dr. Emily Rhodes hadn't slept properly in days. Her eyes red-rimmed as she stared at screens filled with signal patterns. "It doesn't make sense," she muttered, rubbing her temples. "The message warns of danger, but then goes silent when we try to observe more closely." Jack Walker stood beside her, equally puzzled. What if Tom was right? What if our observation itself is the issue? Governor Martinez entered the room, followed by Admiral Patel of the Earth Defense Fleet, who had arrived with the scientific contingent. "We've received new directives from Earth Command," Martinez announced. "They want us to deploy active scanning arrays toward the source system." Emily shook her head vigorously. "That's precisely what we shouldn't do." If these beings shut down communication when we merely observed passively, how will they react to active probing? Admiral Patel frowned. Dr. Rhodes, with all due respect, we can't base interstellar security decisions on what might offend potential aliens. It's not about offense, Jack interjected. It's about understanding their communication style. My son, Mr. Walker, Patel cut him off. Your son made an impressive discovery, but we need more than a child's intuition to formulate first contact protocols. Tom's observation continued to nag at Jack. That evening, he brought his son to the observatory, much to the annoyance of some of the scientists. Tom, can you explain again what you meant about them not liking being watched without permission? Jack asked, as they stood before the main display showing the now silent star cluster. Tom looked around at the adults, suddenly shy. It's like when Ryan at school reads my notes without asking. It's rude. Emily knelt beside the boy. So, you think we should ask permission? Tom nodded. Mom says always knock before entering someone's room. A simple, childish perspective, yet it resonated with Emily. Later that night, after Tom had gone home with his father, she proposed an unorthodox approach to the scientific team. What if we send a simple optical signal, a knock, if you will, and then wait? No scanning, no probing, just a polite announcement of our presence and interest in communication. The idea was met with skepticism, but, lacking better alternatives, they proceeded. A focused laser pulse was sent toward the star cluster, containing basic mathematical sequences indicating intelligence, followed by a simple repeating pattern, that then ceased, the equivalent of a knock on a door, then silence. 3 days passed without response. Admiral Patel grew impatient, pressuring Governor Martinez to authorize the active scans. Then, just as Earth Command's deadline approached, Tom's home telescope detected it first. The stars were talking again. The pattern was different this time, clearly a response to the human signal. Emily's team worked frantically to decode it, and within hours had their answer. It's an invitation, she announced to the assembled leaders. They're providing coordinates for communication on a different frequency and instructions for establishing a dialogue. The message also contained a warning, now more detailed. Beware the harvesters. They seek developing worlds. Communication. Protocols must avoid detection. Harvesters? Admiral Patel questioned. Another species? According to this, Emily explained, pointing to the decoded text, there's a predatory spacefaring civilization that exploits emerging technological worlds. Our active scanning would have drawn their attention. Jack looked at his son with newfound respect. If we had proceeded with the active scans, we might have inadvertently announced ourselves to these harvesters, Martinez finished grimly. Tom smiled, unaware of how significant his simple insight had been. So we knocked politely and they answered. Can I talk to them too? Emily shared a look with Jack. Actually, she said, I think they might prefer that. The communication center, specially constructed on New Hope Colony's moon, had been operational for 2 months. Inside the sterile white room, Tom sat beside Emily, his small hand guided over a peculiar interface designed according to specifications, sent by the aliens, who called themselves the Guardians. Remember, Emily instructed gently. Think of the concepts, not just the words. Tom nodded, his face scrunched in concentration. The interface, a gelatinous, slightly luminescent panel, rippled beneath his fingers. The Guardians had explained that their communication relied on thought patterns more than language, and oddly, children seemed more adept at this form of exchange than adults. They're answering, Tom whispered excitedly. The display beside them showed swirling patterns that the translation algorithms converted to text. We hear you, young one. Your question about our stars is simple to answer. What you see as stars are merely the visible anchors of the veil. Emily leaned forward. Ask them what the veil is. Tom didn't need prompting. His curiosity flowed naturally through the interface. The response came. The veil is our protection, a network of energy matrices spanning our system. It shields us from detection by the harvesters and others who would exploit developing worlds. For millennia, we have hidden this way, watching the cosmos evolve around us. Admiral Patel, observing from behind a glass partition, spoke into his communicator. Ask why they contacted us if they're so concerned about staying hidden. Emily relayed the question more diplomatically, and Tom transmitted it. Your colony's position revealed you to us, came the answer. You settled dangerously close to a harvester transit route. Your communications would eventually have been detected. We broke our silence to warn you. The implications were staggering. Earth had been establishing colonies based on stellar habitability, with no awareness of these interstellar politics or dangers. Over subsequent sessions, the picture became clearer. The Guardians were an ancient species who had evolved beyond physical form millennia ago. They now existed as energy patterns within their star system, which was hidden behind the veil, a massive cloaking technology that made their entire system appear as nothing more than an unremarkable star cluster. The Harvesters, meanwhile, were a coalition of species who systematically exploited developing civilizations, harvesting resources, and sometimes entire populations for labor. They particularly targeted civilizations at humanity's current technological level, advanced enough to be useful, not advanced enough to effectively resist. During one session, Tom asked a question none of the adults had thought to pose. Are you lonely behind your veil? The response came slowly, as if the Guardians were surprised. Yes, young one. Isolation has been our sacrifice for safety. Yours is the first new voice we have heard in 7,000 years. This simple exchange changed the tenor of the relationship. What had begun as a strategic warning evolved into something more profound, a friendship bridging vastly different forms of existence. After 3 months of communication, the Guardians made an unprecedented offer. We can extend a portion of our veil technology to shield your colony world. It would require adjustments to your orbit, but would render you invisible to harvester scans. The offer triggered intense debate among Earth's leadership. Some, like Admiral Patel, saw it as a potential trap. Others viewed it as humanity's first step into the true galactic community. The boy trusts them, Governor Martinez said during one heated discussion. And they've shown no hostile intent. With respect, Governor, Patel countered. We cannot base interstellar policy on a child's instincts. But as Emily pointed out, those instincts had been right so far. The Guardians could have remained silent and let us blunder into harvester territory. Instead, they broke millennia of isolation to warn us. The decision was made. New Hope Colony would accept the Guardians' protection, becoming the first human world to implement alien technology on a planetary scale. The morning of the Veil implementation dawned with an eerie calm across New Hope Colony. Schools and non-essential businesses closed as families gathered in their homes, watching news feeds in the sky above. Military vessels from Earth orbited, protectively, weapons systems on standby, a precaution despite months of peaceful exchange. At the communications center, Tom sat beside his father, both wearing the neural interface crowns that had been developed based on Guardian technology. These devices allowed for clearer communication than the original gelatinous panels. Are you scared? Jack asked his son quietly. Tom shook his head. They're our friends, Dad. They just want to help. The simplicity of his trust was both comforting and terrifying to Jack. Humanity was about to fundamentally alter its relationship, with the cosmos based significantly on the intuition of a child. Dr. Rhodes monitored the translation systems while Governor Martinez and Admiral Patel observed from the command center. The colony's best physicists and engineers stood by, ready to document every aspect of the unprecedented technological exchange. We are beginning, came the Guardian message. First, we will establish anchor points in your planet's magnetosphere. You may observe unusual aurora activity. Minutes later, the sky blazed with ribbons of blue and green light, far more intense than any aurora previously seen on the colony world. Sensors across the planet went haywire, detecting massive energy fluctuations. All readings remained non-harmful to biological life, one scientist reported, relief evident in her voice. Next, the Guardian message continued, we create the resonance pattern. This will temporarily affect your communications systems. As predicted, communications flickered, and screens momentarily displayed strange geometric patterns before stabilizing again. The neural interfaces, however, remained operational. They were already partially based on Guardian technology. Tom suddenly gripped his father's hand. They're singing, he whispered in awe. Through the neural interface, the humans with sufficient sensitivity could perceive it. Not quite sound, not quite light, but a harmonic resonance that seemed to vibrate through reality itself. The Guardians were coordinating their work through what could only be described as music at the quantum level. Outside, the colony's moon began to glow with a subtle iridescence, acting as the primary anchor for the Veil technology. Smaller nodes of light appeared at strategic points in planetary orbit, forming a geometric pattern invisible to the naked eye, but clearly detectable on instruments. "Final phase initiating," the Guardians announced. "The Veil will snap into place. The sensation may be disorienting." What followed was impossible to adequately describe later in reports. For approximately 12 seconds, everyone on the planet experienced a strange perceptual shift, as if reality itself had hiccuped. Some reported momentary double vision, others a brief sensation of weightlessness or hearing distant bells. Then everything appeared normal again, except for one dramatic change. The stars looked different. The familiar constellations had subtly altered, with some stars appearing dimmer or slightly repositioned. "It is complete," the Guardians communicated. "Your world now exists in a perceptual fold. To outside observers, New Hope Colony appears as an uninhabited rocky world with a toxic atmosphere. Your communications are masked, and your energy signatures disguised." Admiral Patel ordered immediate verification. Probes were dispatched beyond the Veil's influence, then directed to scan the colony. The results were astonishing. They detected only what the Guardians had described: a seemingly inhospitable planet with no signs of human habitation. "It worked," Governor Martinez breathed, relief evident in her voice. "We're invisible." Tom removed his neural crown, looking thoughtful. "Does this mean we're hiding forever now?" he asked. Dr. Rhodes smiled gently. "No, Tom. The Guardians explained that the Veil can be selectively permeable. We can still communicate with Earth and other colonies through secured channels. We're not isolated, we're protected." As the day ended, celebrations broke out across the colony. Humanity had taken its first step into a much larger, more complex galactic community than anyone had imagined, guided there by a child's observation and a child's trust. Meanwhile, unnoticed by most, Tom slipped away from the festivities to his backyard telescope. The stars looked different now, but somehow felt closer than ever. 6 months after the implementation of the Veil, life on New Hope Colony had settled into a new normal. The protection offered by Guardian technology had transformed the once vulnerable outpost into one of humanity's most secure settlements. Earth had begun negotiations to extend similar protection to other colonies, with New Hope serving as the diplomatic conduit. Tom, now celebrated as the child ambassador, had grown an inch taller and considerably more confident. His unusual rapport with the Guardians had made him central to ongoing communications, though efforts were made to ensure he still enjoyed a normal childhood. On an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Tom was in science class when he felt it, a discordant note in what he had come to think of as the background music of the Veil. He raised his hand urgently. "I need to go to the communication center," he announced with such certainty that his teacher, aware of his special status, called his father. Immediately, Jack arrived minutes later, finding his son pale and anxious. "What is it, Tom?" "Something's wrong with the Veil," he said simply. "It feels like a hole." Jack had learned to trust his son's perceptions. Within the hour, they were at the communication center, where Dr. Rhodes helped Tom don his neural interface crown. The Guardians responded immediately, their message urgent. "You perceive correctly, young one. A probe has penetrated the outer layer of your Veil. It bears harvester energy signatures." Admiral Patel, now permanently stationed at New Hope, studied the tactical displays. "How is that possible? You assured us the Veil was impenetrable." "No. Defense is absolute," came the Guardian response. "This probe utilizes technology we have not encountered before. It appears to detect dimensional inconsistencies rather than conventional energy or matter." The implications were horrifying. If the Harvesters had developed technology that could detect veiled worlds, both humanity and the Guardians faced existential threat. "Where is this probe now?" Jack asked. "Approaching your outer moon. It has not yet confirmed detection, merely identified an anomaly worthy of investigation. Governor Martinez didn't hesitate. Options for neutralizing it? Conventional weapons would create an energy signature that would confirm your presence, the Guardians warned. The probe must be disabled in a way that appears natural. Tom, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. Like an asteroid hit? The adults exchanged glances, but the Guardians responded with interest. Elaborate, young one. In space class, we learned that small objects hit moons all the time, Tom explained. If something small crashed into the probe, would the harvesters just think it was bad luck? There was a pause before the Guardian response came. The child's strategy has merit. A precisely calculated impact from naturally occurring space debris could disable the probe without revealing intelligent intervention. Admiral Patel nodded slowly. We have stealth vessels that could nudge an appropriate asteroid into the right trajectory. Make it look like cosmic bad luck. As the military personnel rushed to implement the plan, Tom remained connected to the Guardians, his young mind processing information at a remarkable rate through the neural interface. There's something else, he said suddenly. The Guardians are worried that this isn't random. They think the probe was sent specifically because the harvesters suspected something. Dr. Rhodes looked alarmed. Is that true? She asked through her own interface. Yes, came the response. This probe's trajectory suggests purposeful investigation rather than routine surveillance. The harvesters may have detected anomalies during the Veil implementation process. As the hours passed, the colony held its collective breath. The stealth vessel successfully redirected a small asteroid into a collision course with the probe. The impact, when it came, appeared completely natural, just another random collision in the chaotic dance of space objects. 3 days of tense monitoring followed before the Guardians confirmed, the Harvester probe has been classified as lost, to natural causes. No recovery mission has been dispatched. Relief washed over the colony, but it was tempered by new understanding. Their safety wasn't absolute. The Harvesters were more technologically advanced than initially believed, and worse, they might suspect the existence of veiled worlds. That evening, as Tom worked on his homework, he asked his father a question that would fundamentally change humanity's relationship with the Guardians. Dad, if the Harvesters can find the Guardians too, shouldn't we help protect them the way they're protecting us? The proposal, which quickly became known as the Walker Initiative after its young originator, transformed what had been a protective relationship into something unprecedented, a mutual defense alliance between humanity and the Guardians. The child's perspective is refreshingly direct, the Guardian communication stated during the formal diplomatic session. For millennia, we have hidden. Perhaps it is time to stand together instead. Earth's diplomatic corps, hastily assembled representatives from various colonies, and the highest levels of military command convened on New Hope Colony. The discussions were complex, the implications vast. How could humans, with their comparatively primitive technology, offer meaningful protection to the energy-based Guardians? Admiral Patel, who had initially been the most skeptical of Guardian intentions, became the strongest advocate for the alliance. The Guardians have knowledge, but they lack physical form, he explained to the assembled delegates. We have ships, weapons, and the ability to act in ways they cannot. Dr. Rhodes added, and our perspectives are complementary. The Guardians think in terms of millennia and cosmic patterns. We see immediate threats and tactical opportunities they might miss. Tom, seated beside his father in the diplomatic gallery, listened intently. In the 6 weeks since the probe incident, he had spent hours in communication with the Guardians, developing a deeper understanding of their nature and vulnerabilities. The alliance framework that emerged was revolutionary. Humanity would provide physical defense capabilities, establishing a joint fleet that would patrol the space between veiled systems. The Guardians would share more of their advanced technology, focusing on detection systems and stealth capabilities, rather than weapons. Most crucially, they would establish joint training programs. Selected humans would learn to perceive reality more as the Guardians did, developing greater sensitivity to the quantum harmonics that formed the basis of Veil technology. In exchange, Guardian consciousness constructs would be temporarily housed in specialized vessels, allowing them to experience physical space in ways they had abstained from for thousands of years. We call it the Sentinel Initiative, Governor Martinez announced at the formal signing ceremony. Together, we will watch for threats, and protect developing civilizations from exploitation. The implementation began immediately. The first joint patrol vessels were dispatched 3 months later, crewed by humans but incorporating Guardian sensory technology. They operated beyond the veil, gathering intelligence on harvester movements and occasionally making contact with other hidden species who had been protecting themselves in isolation. Tom, despite his youth, was appointed as a special consultant to the Cultural Exchange Program. His intuitive understanding of Guardian thought patterns made him invaluable in designing training protocols for adult recruits who struggled with the abstract concepts. The trick, he explained to a frustrated admiral during one session, is to stop thinking of space as empty. It's full of music if you know how to listen. On the first anniversary of the Alliance, a milestone was quietly achieved. A Guardian consciousness successfully transferred into a specially designed vessel, experiencing physical form for the first time in thousands of years. The being, identifying itself as First Navigator, emerged from the integration chamber and approached Tom. "Your perception was correct, young human," it communicated through a synthesized voice. "Isolation was never the answer. Connection is." The hybrid ship body moved with graceful precision as First Navigator adapted to physical existence. More Guardians followed, each volunteering to join human crews on Sentinel vessels. Their presence transformed the effectiveness of the patrols. With Guardians able to directly perceive harvester energy signatures and humans providing the physical interface with conventional space, they successfully intercepted 3 harvester scouting missions before they could identify any veiled worlds. As news of these successes spread throughout human space, other colonies petitioned to join the Sentinel Initiative. Training centers were established, and a new generation of human Guardian partners emerged. Tom, watching the program grow, felt a deep satisfaction. What had begun with his simple observation through a telescope was evolving into something that might one day reshape the galaxy's power dynamics. "Do you think the harvesters will ever give up?" he asked First Navigator during a training session. The Guardian's ship body emitted a soft, harmonic pulse that Tom had come to recognize as their equivalent of thoughtful consideration. "They have dominated for millennia through their advantage of knowledge," First Navigator replied. "Now that advantage erodes. They will not surrender easily, but perhaps they will eventually learn that cooperation yields greater rewards than conquest." Tom nodded, understanding the Guardian's patient perspective. "One step at a time, then." "Yes," First Navigator agreed, and the first step was a child noticing something unusual in the stars. 20 years had passed since Tom Walker first noticed the strange, blinking stars. New Hope Colony had grown from a frontier outpost into the administrative center of the Human Guardian Alliance, its distinctive architecture blending human practicality with the flowing, harmonious designs preferred by the Guardians. Tom, now 28 and director of interspecies communications, stood on the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters, watching the arrival of the diplomatic delegation. The massive ship entering orbit was unlike any human or Guardian design, its biomechanical structure pulsing with internal light that signaled its harvester origin. "Nervous?" asked the woman who joined him at the viewport. Tom smiled at Dr. Emily Rhodes, now in her 60s but still sharp as ever. "Wouldn't you be? 20 years of shadow conflict leading to this moment. After years of losing scout ships and probes to the mysterious Sentinel forces, the Harvester Collective had finally requested direct communication. Whether this represented genuine interest in peaceful coexistence or merely a tactical shift remained to be seen. The door slid open, admitting Admiral Patel, his hair now white, but his posture still military straight. Beside him hovered the distinctive vessel housing First Navigator, the Guardian who had become Tom's closest ally. "The Harvester representatives are transferring to the station," Patel reported. "Their physiology requires specialized atmospheric conditions, but they've accepted our containment protocols." "And our other guests?" Tom asked. First Navigator's vessel emitted a soft, harmonic pulse. "The representatives from the 7 formerly hidden species have all arrived. Each brings unique perspective on harvester interactions." The meeting chamber had been specially designed for this historic summit. At its center stood a holographic projection field where delegates could appear in comfortable resolution without physical proximity. Around this field, separated booths accommodated the diverse biological needs of the assembled species. Tom took his position beside the Earth ambassador. his role not official, but essential. He remained the human with the greatest sensitivity to Guardian communication patterns, serving as the bridge between the two allied species. The Harvester delegation entered last. Their environmental suits couldn't fully mask their unsettling appearance. Tall, segmented bodies with multiple sensory appendages and skin that seemed to shift and flow with iridescent patterns. Tom felt a chill, remembering all the intelligence, reports detailing their systematic exploitation of developing worlds. "We acknowledge this unprecedented assembly," the lead Harvester stated, its translated voice surprisingly melodic. "For millennia, the collective has been the dominant power in this sector. Now we find ourselves challenged." The Earth ambassador replied with careful diplomacy, but it was First Navigator who addressed the underlying reality. "You have lost 32 vessels in the past decade attempting to penetrate veiled regions. Your economic models show declining returns on conquest operations. You are here because exploitation has become less efficient than negotiation." The Harvester's skin rippled in what intelligence suggested was amusement. "Direct, as we expected from energy beings. Yes, your alliance has disrupted our operations. More concerning is how your protection has emboldened other species to resist our collection activities." Representatives from the 7 formerly hidden civilizations each spoke, describing their experiences with Harvester exploitation and their recent liberation under Alliance protection. Some had been hiding for millennia. Others had suffered resource depletion before being found by Alliance scouts. Throughout the tense negotiations that followed, Tom found himself reflecting on how it had all begun, with a child's simple observation and complaint. "The stars are blinking funny," had led to the greatest shift in galactic power dynamics in recorded history. By the summit's end, a framework emerged. The Harvesters would cease predatory activities in Alliance territory. In exchange, they would receive limited technology transfers and trading rights. Most significantly, they would join in a mutual defense pact against threats from beyond the sector. Threats the Harvesters hinted were far worse than their own exploitative practices. As the delegations dispersed, Tom found himself alone with First Navigator in the now empty chamber. "Do you trust them?" Tom asked. "Trust is not a relevant metric," the Guardian replied. "We have changed the calculation. For the first time, in their history, cooperation has become more advantageous than predation." Tom nodded, understanding the Guardian's pragmatic viewpoint. 20 years ago, I just thought the stars were pretty. I never imagined where it would lead." "That is precisely why it worked," First Navigator observed. "Your perception was unclouded by expectation. You saw what was, not what you believed should be." Later that evening, Tom visited his parents' home in the original settlement zone. His father, retired now but still consulting occasionally on astronomical matters, had preserved Tom's first telescope in a place of honor. "They're running a special about you on the nets tonight," Jack said proudly. "The boy who changed the galaxy, they're calling it." Tom laughed, embarrassed. "I just noticed something weird and complained about it. Everything that followed was because of people like you, Mom, Dr. Rhodes, Admiral Patel. And the Guardians," his mother added, bringing refreshments from the kitchen. "Don't forget them." "I never could," Tom replied softly. After dinner, he stepped outside onto the porch where it had all begun. The night sky above New Hope looked nothing like it had 20 years ago. The veil technology had evolved, becoming selective rather than absolute. Now, the true splendor of near space was visible, not just stars but the luminous energy patterns of Guardian constructs, the distinctive warp signatures of Alliance vessels, and occasionally, the regulated transit of Harvester ships moving peacefully through designated corridors. What had once been hidden was now gloriously revealed. A galaxy teeming with diverse life and intelligence, slowly learning to coexist rather than compete. All because a child had looked up at the stars and said something didn't look right. Tom Walker smiled and whispered to the cosmos, "You're welcome."